And besides, we're not actually Native Americans. I mean, I'm more like a Mexican.
What?
Yeah, a Mexican.
Oh, I didn't know that. Oh my God!
Art is a time capsule, no matter who or where it comes from. From any culture, from any part of the world, it's reflective of an era. Sometimes it reminds you that history tends to repeat itself. Watchmen and The Dark Knight Returns, both heavily influenced by the Cold War, and the impending doom of the Doomsday Clock, government control, and the obsession with media, which carried over by a loose adaptation of The Dark Knight Returns in Batman v Superman, 30 years later, and it had the same motif of media obsession. Sometimes art can reflect culture, like the Korean film Memories of Murder, about a string of murders that occur in a small town. The detectives are limited in resources because of their country, and it proves difficult to get DNA results without sending it to another country, pinning these characters in a state of obsession and frustration because of their inadequacies to catch a murderer. The beauty of art is that there are so many different forms: music, film, comic books, paintings, stand-up comedy, coming from different cultures, each with something different to offer. Something I think is personally funny is how much Hispanic and Latino culture seeps into the zeitgeist of pop culture. It influences things in ways I don't think a lot of people realize. Mexican culture can sometimes be trendsetters. Cheech and Chong started the archetype of spaced-out comedy duos that were followed by Bill and Ted.
Excellent!
Jay and Silent Bob.
Who smokes the blunts? We smoke the blunts. Rolling blunts and smoking.
And Harold and Kumar. That's just one example of many different ways Mexican culture and representation gets into the ether of the arts and pop culture. Representation is something that resonates. There's pride that is felt when there's somebody of your nationality that does something inspirational. For me, in the last decade, I felt that with these three Mexican filmmakers, who each have won the Oscar for Best Director. The three amigos of cinema, collectively they have all been making films for 30 years. Each a native to Mexico, bringing their own distinct flavor and style to their films. Alfonso tends to gravitate, no pun intended, towards sci-fi, with extensive long takes, especially taking characters through a journey of survival. Alejandro is the most grounded of the three, yet he too has his own flair. He roots his storytelling in a surrealistic way that explores characters from a mental state. And Guillermo's films are more fantasy-driven, with spectacle that's rich with imagination. Each of them has brought something to the table that has been done before, but I would argue that each of them sets the standard. Nowadays, I think they are the modern examples aspiring filmmakers think of when they want to have creature effects or long extensive takes. I think there's a natural alluring element to Mexico, especially to Hollywood. Pancho Villa, one of the many faces of the Mexican Revolution, started a relationship with several Hollywood producers, where cameramen were invited out to film battles of the Mexican Revolution. Emilio Fernandez, the director of Macovia, it is believed that he was the model for the Oscar statue. Katie Gerardo, after spending a decade as an actress in Mexico, moved into Hollywood to make films. In 1954, she was the first Latina to be nominated for an Oscar. She even won herself a Golden Globe for her performance in High Noon, which was her first American film. But someone of note I did want to examine a little closer was this legend.
He tasks me, and I shall have him. I'll chase him round the moons of Nibia and round the Antares maelstrom and round perdition's flames before I give him up.
Please welcome Ricardo Montalban.
Ricardo Montalban is a staple in the pulp culture zeitgeist, if not for his role in Fantasy Island, then for sure in geekdom in Wrath of Khan. As someone that likes Star Trek very casually, I love this movie, mostly because of Montalban's performance. It's such a weird performance, it's almost campy, but it's done with such conviction and finesse that it's actually good. Wrath of Khan is arguably the best Star Trek movie amongst fans, and Star Trek as a property can stand on its own legs, but I believe it was Montalban's acting that elevated this movie and made it special. He is without a doubt the standout. He causes the most famous line read from William Shatner.
I shall leave you as you left me, as you left her, marooned for all eternity in the center of a dead planet. Buried alive, buried alive.
Although it's never really brought up, I would point to his ethnicity being the special flavor that's added to such a great performance. From his stature to his alluring accent, Montalban crafts a truly unique character out of Khan. It's a recipe for such a great movie villain. The wonderful thing about art is it's not exclusive. It's not something that requires advantage or privilege. Snow the Product has been an underground rapper for a better part of the decade that has reached heights in mainstream success. She started with making rap videos on YouTube and SoundCloud that eventually drew the attention of other underground rappers like Tech9 and Chris Calico. As her success grew, she had a featured guest spot on the Hamilton mixtape, as well as a small part in the TV show Queen of the South. It's impressive all she has accomplished, especially since she's been raising her son throughout her career, and it all started from humble beginnings. Then there's someone like Robert Rodriguez. When he was in his early 20s, he made his first feature film for only $7,000, which he raised by placing himself as a test subject for experimental medicines and drugs. He used his friends, family, and his community to create a very effective and fun action film starring a mariachi hero. That mentality of doing things conveniently and cheap is what shaped all his movies going forward. He makes them cheap, but they're effective with his imagination, which has served his career for the last 30 years. I find stories like that very inspiring, because no matter your situation in life, with a bit of creativity, wit, and determination, you can create something that will grab anyone's attention. Art is ubiquitous. It serves as a time capsule of history as well as an expression of emotions. The wonderful thing is, other Latino cultures have cemented into the pop culture zeitgeist just as much as Mexican culture has. Whenever you go to a party store and you see merchandise for these characters, they were drawn by this man, Jose Luis Garcia Lopez. For at least a generation of 20 to 30 years, his work has been used as the official artwork to represent these characters. When you think about our first live-action Joker is played by a Latino. The definitive Wonder Woman run, my personal favorite, is written and drawn by a Latino. Back in the mid-2000s, there was a found footage horror film called Record, about an outbreak in an apartment complex shot in real time. It's an amazing film that launched a series of sequels from its success in Spain. A year later, the US co-opted and made its own version called Quarantine. I may be biased because I love Record, and I've never seen Quarantine, but Quarantine looks a little too clean, a little too high-end on the production side. So it robs the integrity and the authentic horror that Record captures. There is so much out there, especially in this day and age, where so many voices can be heard with a wide range. There's something for everybody, you just have to find it and enjoy it.